The Lord has redeemed all of us, not just Catholics, even atheists. If you wonder who said this, you might be surprised. Pope Francis, of all people. I will discuss this issue in this video, but you can also find it more extensively in my two books, The Destiny of the Universe, Of All That Is Seen and Unseen. You can find it at wheredowecomefrom.com. When you listen to what Pope Francis says, you wonder, did he endorse religious relativism? Did he say that there are many roads to heaven for everyone, even the road atheists follow? Does it no longer matter or count what you believe in religion? Did we get a free ticket to heaven? I would say let's not jump to conclusions too hastily. Let's find out. Catholics were taught that there is no salvation outside the Church. So what about the millions who have a different religion? Vatican II says those who, through no fault of their own, do not know the gospel of Christ or his Church, but who nevertheless seek God with a sincere heart and moved by grace, try in their actions to do his will as they know it, through the dictates of their conscience, those too may achieve eternal salvation. That's what Vatican II said, and that's what the Church has said for thousands of years. Karl Rahner, the theologian, introduced the term anonymous Christian. It conveys an important message by declaring that people who have never heard the Christian gospel, including the ones who lived before Jesus, might still be saved through Christ. Christ died once for all. Is this a cautious way of saying there is eternal salvation for everyone, whether they are Christians or not? Vatican II and the Pope since and before speak of redemption for all, but not of salvation for all. That is an important distinction. So we have a free ticket to heaven because it was paid for by Jesus Christ. It's good for all eternity. We are redeemed, each one of us. But let's not confuse these two notions. Redemption is universal, everyone. But salvation is not. Redemption is not the same as salvation. And that is important to realize. Redemption is for all, it's universal because Christ died for all, as St. Paul says in his letter to the Corinthians. The Catechism of the Catholic Church puts it very emphatically. There is not, never has been, and never will be a single human being for whom Christ did not suffer. But redemption is not salvation. The sheep at the last judgment are the ones who have accepted Jesus' redemption and lived their lives accordingly. The goats did not accept the gift of universal redemption, so they may miss out on salvation. So the question is, did Pope Francis stray away from church teaching? I don't think so. He only confirmed that redemption in Christ is for all, not just Catholics. However, it does not follow from this that people from other religions, not to mention those without a religion, have accepted this gift of redemption and therefore will receive salvation. Redemption is universal, but salvation is not. Redemption has opened heaven for all, but that does not mean that all will come in. Is it possible to have no salvation? Sure. If there is evil, and if there is eternity, then there is hell. Hell is just evil eternalized. In hell, you simply get for all eternity the life you chose on earth. As C.S. Lewis once said about hell, it's the greatest monument to human freedom. If we take human freedom seriously, we have to accept that there is also evil and therefore hell, not salvation. So what did Pope Francis actually do when he said what we started with? He used St. Peter's Square as an Areopagus, just the way St. Paul did when he was in Athens. He was evangelizing, trying to bring salvation for as many people as possible. His message was not a declaration of universal salvation, but an invitation to salvation, in an effort to make salvation as universal as possible. It's a timeless temptation to put human freedom against God's sovereignty. Here is the paradox. The heretic Pelagius held that we alone are responsible for our salvation, through what we do, for our works, for our actions. The reformer John Calvin argued the opposite, that God alone is responsible for our salvation through grace. But those two are not in opposition to each other. It is God's sovereignty and man's free will at the same time. How we live does matter for our salvation. Redemption is from God. Good works on our side are always a fruit of grace, coming from God's side first. Jesus is very clear about this in his imagery of the vine. I am the vine, you are the branches. Apart from me you can do nothing. God's part comes first, of course. However, on our side we are free to cooperate with God's grace or not. His grace is captivating, but not irresistible. We can resist His grace. That's our human freedom that He gave us when He made us in His own image. We don't earn salvation, since it's a gift based on grace. But we do have the choice to accept or reject that gift through our works. When you call yourself born again, the question is, now what? Is that a guarantee? Of course not. We need to do our part, our work, to let God's grace work. What we do does not take anything away from what God does in His sovereignty. You can identify a tree by its fruit, so in the same way you can identify people by their actions, says the Gospel. God provides sufficient grace for everyone to be saved, but whether it's efficient and put into effect depends on us. That is our human freedom. Thomas Aquinas puts it very well when he said, grace changes the will without forcing it. God does not force us into His grace. We have a choice, and that's why evil is a reality and hell is a reality. Salvation is offered to all, but it may not produce salvation. No one is predetermined to get saved or lost. Everyone is predestined to salvation, but not everyone accepts it. Thanks to Jesus Christ, we are all redeemed, but we may not be all ready for salvation. As I said before, in this book I discuss this in a question and answer format, especially in chapters 6 and 8, and there are many more there, as you can see. And I also discuss all of this in the book The Destiny of the Universe. It has these 6 chapters, and the last one is about a universe with a destiny, a universe of good and bad people, a universe of winners and losers.